Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
The future of financial literacy is all about financial resilience, inclusion, and well being. Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens, where we explore how changing the way we think about money helps us navigate life's what ifs. I'm joined today by Els Lagrou, author and financial literacy expert. Els, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here today.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad to have you here and look forward to our conversation. So, let's jump in. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and how did it lead to you focusing on financial resilience, inclusion, and well being?
Oh, it's already a long story because I started already a long time ago in the financial sector, and I always worked in the financial sector. I started at the commercial side, so in savings banks, a brokerage firm, and of course I could help a lot of clients. But yeah, I already had the feeling that clients still have a lot of questions already a long time ago when we did not have digitalization and anything else. And during my work, I also was reviewed, or my work was reviewed by the regulator, and we started discussing. And in fact, I thought that their work was really very relevant and interesting because, trying to make the banks better, to make the banks more, I would say, secure, but also to make them more consumer friendly. For me that was like, okay, this is the way I should do it. So I started then as a banking auditor. So I did a lot of I would say evaluations of banks, and I formulated a lot of recommendations to make banking better for all. But then we had the crisis in 2008. I think it was a crisis around the world, and not only in the States but also in Europe. And then I think a lot of people really realized that so many people who were not resilient at all, they lost a lot of money. And if they would have been a little bit more financial resilient and a little bit more financial literate, I think a lot of people would not have suffered that much. And from that moment, I started to focus on financial education. That's a bit my story, and then a broader perspective: inclusion, well-being, and resilience.
Fantastic. Yeah, and we can break all that down. So, could you define a little bit for us? Because we people hear these terms, financial literacy, financial resilience. What do those mean to you?
Yeah. Well, for me, of course, financial literacy is important. It means like you are able to handle finance. You know a little bit about finance. You don't need to be an expert, but you have knowledge. You have a certain attitude. You know what to do, where to go for help, etc. So that's of course important. But in fact, it's only, I would say, an intermediate step, because even if you are well financial literate and you have a high level, or if you do a test you have a high score, it really does not mean that you don't have financial stress. And that's something that a lot of people do forget. They think, oh, I'm financial literate, I know a lot about finance, all okay, but that seems not to be correct. Because even if we have this level of financial literacy, we do see that a lot of people are not resilient. If there's a shock, we have, I would say, a war, we have a COVID crisis, and we've seen it, so many times, and I'm afraid that we will see it even more in the future. We see that people are not capable to absorb a shock when they have a crisis at home, a financial complicated situation, a health situation, or a divorce. People really become, I would say, they become in trouble. And of course, when you don't feel comfortable with your money and you do have a lot of financial stress, then you don't feel happy. Your well-being really decreases because I think, and that's important when we look at the World Happiness Report. I think recently it was again published. It's around the world. We try to measure, are people happy? And one of the most important elements of the happiness report and being happy is being satisfied with your financial situation. So that's why resilience and well-being is so important. And of course, financial inclusion, because yeah, it's important that everybody has the possibility to feel resilient and to become financial okay with his situation. So important to reach out to everyone. That's a bit, yeah, I would say a lot of words, but the difference between financial literacy, resilience, well-being, and inclusion.
Well, that's fantastic. That's a great breakdown. I appreciate that. Is, because we hear all these, and I think a lot of people sort of nod their head and go, "Oh, okay, I sort of get it." And
Mhm,
they don't look deeper. And I think there is that interplay that, everything fits together.
mhm,
And there's not a discrete component where this is your financial life, this is your outside life. It's just your life.
mhm,
And that money does have an impact and on everything else. As you point out, is we don't think, like, okay, I'm happy today, but it's also you're happy because you're not worried about your money. So it's that has an impact. So that's great that you're able to wrap that up for us. Let's dive into inclusion for a minute, because I think that's a really important factor. When people hear inclusion, some people think it's a negative word or we shouldn't talk about it. Is You started to talk about, the benefits of financial inclusion. How does financial inclusion benefit us as a society?
well, as I mentioned, being happy is, of course, very important. Being resilient, it also means that, yeah, somebody is capable of participating in the society, doing something, working, helping others, um, asking for help, whatever. And if someone is not resilient, yeah, then somebody will not be able to participate in society. And people who are not participating, well, they need help. We need to pay for them. We need to help them. They need a lot of support. So it's very important that, yeah, we reach out to everybody so that we do not leave people behind and that everybody is capable of participating in this world. And okay, we need money for that, but it's a tool. It's a tool to be able to function, to participate, to talk, to be happy. Yeah, that's in fact the important thing about inclusion. And it's true, it might sometimes be a word that people don't like, but inclusion, yeah, means that, yeah, you need to reach out to everyone. That's really very important. And I try to reach out to employees, so people working in companies. And that's why I think this is very inclusive in the sense that we have access to really all kind of people and a lot of people who would, yeah, never have access, for example, to financial education. So that's important because employees come from everywhere. They have a different background. Some are very good in finance, other not at all. And yeah, if you give the possibility to all people to participate, to increase their financial well-being, yeah, then it's very inclusive. And that's, I think, yeah, the workplace for me is a very good place to start yeah, doing that because it is very inclusive.
Yeah, I love that. Is I think, we need to reframe what the term inclusion is, and that there
Mhm,
is a benefit to everyone. And so, company is a great example. If you're running a company, and we're going to jump in talk about CEOs and leaders in a minute,
mhm,
but if you're running a company and half of your employees are struggling with their money, there are just endless studies that show financial stress impacts job performance.
mhm,
It just straight out. So making sure everybody has access to financial information, but also the ability to actually use it. I think that's one of the challenges for me with financial literacy is we have a lot of financial literacy, but people are not necessarily more financially literate and they're not
Yeah.
able to put it into action. And that's why I love this next evolution is because it's really about integrating it into your life rather than just watching a video about a certain financial topic because nobody really cares about the specific
Mhm.
products unless they're deciding which product to have. So that's such an important viewpoint.
Yeah, no, I fully agree that, yeah, the most important thing is acting and doing something with all it because, yeah, listening to something might be perhaps the first step to take action, but if you don't move and you don't take action, nothing will change, of course. No, I fully agree, yeah, with that.
Yeah, and I think back to when I was a consultant is, I worked generally with other professional advisors and was a consultant to them, but in dealing directly with consumers, they're interested in solving problems for the most part. They're interested in making sure their kids are taken care of. They're making sure they have enough money in retirement. Most of them are not interested in knowing the top five, stock ETFs
No,
or
no,
whatever. So they're
no.
interested in solving problems. So, let's jump in and talk about CEOs and leaders for a minute. Is why do CEOs and other leaders often find it difficult to talk openly about money with their employees?
Yeah, that's a question that I ask very often. Why does it come that it is so difficult to convince them and to say that it's really necessary to talk openly? Uh, First of all, I think they really do not have, yeah, they don't have a habit to do it. So yeah, I think they don't know how to do it. They might be even a bit afraid of starting these conversations, especially with their employees, because they they don't have the experience. And what are the reasons for that? I think first of all, a lot of CEOs, of course, they have a good salary and are often, yeah, I would say, far removed from the day-to-day financial problems of their employees and what they are facing on a day-to-day basis. And of course, as a CEO, you have a good overview of everything that's happened in the company, money that comes in, comes out, and so you can manage this. And I think, yeah, they should really try to, yeah, to think and to go into the heads of their employees and see, okay, what are their competencies? And yeah, they don't have this overview, and it's out of their scope or job to have this overview. Um, so yeah, they live in a different world with other competencies, and yeah, I think um, for them to go on this micro level of people, what do people need to be capable to manage the money that they earn? They come every day, they work hard, they do their best, they receive money for that. And as a CEO, a lot of them think, oh, that's fine. They should all be happy because they have their salary. So what
Yeah.
is the problem? But then the problem starts for those people because they didn't learn what to do. What shall I do? How can I manage this to be happy today, tomorrow, and also in the future, and to make my life happy and for my children and whatever. So yeah, I think that's really a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think you said something, and you've used the word happy quite a few times, and I think that is such an important word is to
Mhm.
think about. And to go back to what you're talking about is, in my experience working with leaders and CEOs and founders, is they don't understand their personal money any better than anyone else.
Mhm.
For the same reason, they never had the opportunity to learn about it. Now, they may be able to manage cash flow of their operation. They may know accounting
Mhm.
principles and all those things, but that's not the same as, applying those principles to their cash flow, let's say at home.
Yeah.
And they don't think about that as like, oh boy, it's the same cash flow principles. I have to spend less money than I earn.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And in a business, you know that. and it's an
Hmm.
iron law, and you don't
Yeah.
get into that issue. Or you know that I have to take on debt, and you can evaluate the different kinds of debt, or off, issue bonds or whatever you need to do. But again, in your personal life, you don't apply that same thing to say, well, what's good debt and what's bad debt, where you apply
Yeah.
those principles in your business. And I think that's something that we need to talk about more, is that these principles are the same no matter where you're
Mhm.
applying. Cash flow principles are the same. All these other things, investment tracking and everything else, tracking your supply chain. These are all things that impact you no matter whether it's a
Right.
business or your personal life. So that's fantastic. And I'm glad you're talking about that. One of the other things you and I talked about was the role of shame with our money.
Mhm.
What role does shame play with our money, and how do we overcome it?
Oh, I think, yeah, there's shame is really, I would say, the word, because yeah, I see and I hear and I feel it every day in almost all companies. And I think it already starts with, yeah, people I try, of course, to convince to start with a financial education or with financial training in companies. Very often I speak with people in HR and you already, I very often immediately feel, I would say, kind of retention or fear, because those people, they also feel uncomfortable with the topic of money. And I think, as you mentioned, a lot of people do not manage their own finance very well. Even the CEO, well, also the HR is not working on its own financial plan. So they feel immediately uncomfortable with the topic, and it's like, okay, I'm not comfortable, so how can I introduce something that I don't know what to do about it, and I think I should do it better. So talking about it is, of course, yeah, very important, and also trying to explain. I think you mentioned it already, and it's really something. Your message is, it's not about money; it's about your life and what you're doing in your life. And I think they they don't realize that money is just learning people how to deal with money is not for the technical issues, but to be, yeah, to have the life that you want to have, and they don't realize that, and um that's difficult. So, and then we have some, I would say, it's perhaps not shame, it's more um fear that people will ask for more, a higher salary, for example, after those courses, because they really think that after a course of financial education, the only thing people will ask is, "Oh, I need more money." But it's just the opposite. We try to learn what can you do with the money you receive already. But yeah, so it's shame, and it's also the fact that they, yeah, ignore a lot of elements, that they don't realize that financial stress is so important. They say, oh, people have stress because of their health and the work pressure, relationships, and all these kind of things, but they don't realize that, yeah, financial stress is also very important. And so I think we have to inform leaders, trainers, managers, CEOs more about why is it so important that we are doing it, and talk about it. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think financial education programs do help people use their money more efficiently.
Hmm.
And that is something that leaders don't think about because they're not using their money more efficiently. So
Yeah.
they're thinking about their own situation rather than thinking about, okay, what is really going on here? Because that's a common human trait to think about, like, okay, how does this impact me? And
Hmm.
rather than how does this impact everyone else? And even leaders fall into that trap sometimes. So, how should employees look at money matters, such as their salary and employee benefits, so that they maximize the value? Because I think that's something I know that's often missed, is people have no idea, how valuable their employee benefits are and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely correct. One of the questions I very often ask during trainings is, do you know exactly the total amount of money that you will receive from your company? And people really don't know it. So for me, they should have, and what we should learn them is to really have a good understanding of everything that they receive from their employer. But very important is that they should also take into account not only, I would say, pure financial or monetary income. They should also look at non-financial benefits such as sport facilities, healthy foods that they receive, or childcare, vacation days, flexible working hours, because it also has a value. And if you don't realize everything that you receive, you will perhaps not be happy. Some people want to change. They are looking for another job because they think, oh, I don't receive enough money. But it's because they really don't realize what is my total package of my benefits. And if tomorrow I have an accident or I'm going to the hospital, what's going to happen with me? Do I have an insurance? What about my pension? How? And this is also very important. And people, yeah, that's a bit technical, I think, information that we should give. But of course, with the tools nowadays, it's easy to have a better view. But they should first of all understand that my benefits today are not only the benefits that I see on my bank account every month, but it's much more. It's also benefits in the future, perhaps not easy to evaluate, but I will receive them, and they are important. If one day I don't have my childcare, for example, that is paid by my employer, it will cost me a lot of money, and it will give me perhaps other troubles in my life. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. In fact, I've created a total compensation statement. So for people watching and listening, they'll be able to go to the show notes and find a link to download it, no cost. But it totals all those things because that's something that I found so often. I started out when I first started out quite a few years ago, is helping employees at open enrollment time, and they'd have no concept. And how would they know the value of their benefits as we talk about
Yeah.
some of these things,
Yeah.
and like the various insurance benefits that companies pay
Yeah.
for, at least in the US, and they're valuable. Or like you said, is
Yeah.
childcare benefits, or
Yeah.
retirement schemes, depending on which country you're in. Every country's so different how it deals with
Hmm.
retirement. But if your employer is helping put money towards your
Yeah.
retirement, that is a huge benefit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
it's not a today benefit. And I think that's the other thing that can be hard for all of us is, something off in the future doesn't have as much value as something we're receiving today. So it's hard to take that into account, but it is so important. So I love that you're bringing up. So before we start to wrap up, I want to talk about AI for a minute. What impact do you think AI will have on a relationship with money, and what role will humans still have?
Oh, that's a difficult question because it goes so because it goes so quickly. So I really believe in technology. So AI can definitely help us a lot with our relation with money and money management. So I think AI can definitely help our decision-making process to go much more smoothly with all the data companies have, and also financial institutions. They can really offer us products before we think about it that we should need it. So good for us. So we don't need to use our energy, to use our brains to think about that. We can do totally other things that we love more than managing our money. So it has a lot of advantages, but at the same time, of course, buying almost products without realizing, being offered things that look so good for me. Of course, in a commercial world, there's a risk that we will buy things and that we will, yeah, handle so quick and easily that we want to do the best things for us. So even if technology will be able to help us and make our lives better and to give us products that we understand much better, because as you said, we don't need the technical things of a lot of products. We need to understand why it is useful. But we still need, I think, humans and people who really think and who assess and evaluate everything that we are doing, because um, it's good to be, I would say, out of control and to give the control to the AI. But we do know that there are a lot of hallucinations in AI. So do we want us to take a system, make all the decisions, if we know that the system sometimes is hallucinating? So somebody needs to take care and still have a good overview and still keep us resilient, of course, because if we don't think any longer and we all the decisions are made by AI for my personal life, my financial life, but it has an impact on my life. If the machine doesn't work good any longer or uses data that are not good for me, then people really might be in big trouble, even bigger troubles than today. So yes, it can definitely help us. It will help us already today. We see that with a few clicks, and we have nice tools built on AI who are much more transparent and everything. But we still need, I think, humans more than ever to think about it. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's a bit my point of view.
No, I'm with you 100%. And that's, been a real focus of this podcast recently. And for people who get my newsletter, they've heard me talk about this, is that humans are going to have a role, but more of a therapist role, more of a personal guidance role than the technical role of creating the actual financial plan. And AI can create a pretty good financial plan. And a lot of financial planners have used, financial planning packages anyway to prepare a financial plan. So it's not a big leap forward. I think where AI, as I think this through and hearing what you said, is I just had the revelation that AI may actually help prevent against some financial abuse, because just like, we talk about AI having hallucinations, is it's not the same, but human advisors may have a hallucination, if we'll use that word, where they're being financial predators. So AI could also be a backstop against financial predators. It could be, I had a guest if people listen to my episode with Francis Young, who, and talking about how AI can prevent cyber fraud and help, guard against elder abuse. So I think those are things where, you find that balance. Like you said, is AI can do certain things, humans can do certain things, and you check the both of them, and then you have a pretty good package. So that's where I fall on it.
No, but I agree that the good thing is that the technical issues or not will they still be relevant, but you don't need to see them. They are, I would say, behind all this, and you will receive much more comprehensive information in a language that really, that's of course a big advantage. We talked about inclusion with AI. With just one push on a button, you can change languages to all kinds of target groups, people in other languages, people who are not very good in reading. So you can do so much good things, but it's a matter of trust, and we should trust the system. I think we should trust AI, because otherwise, we will panic, and I think we will no longer be able to function in this society where technology is everywhere. But at the same time, it's like with money is everywhere. And we do know that it is really important to have trust in the system. So I think we will need, I don't know, it's now as we talk that I think about it, but we have in the banking sector, we have supervisors. I think we will also need a kind of supervisors on this AI systems. If the AI systems is really, gonna a little bit take over our decisions, somebody should have a look and still moderate that, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just it. It's finding that balance, and can we find that balance?
Mhm.
Um, but it's the advisors who, and the members of the financial services industry. I'm with you, who still have that personal touch, are the
Mhm.
ones who are going to continue to have a role. So, Els, to wrap up, I have what's called the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. These are three questions I ask all my guests, are more rapid fire in nature. The first one is, what's one money myth you're trying to break?
In fact, it's perhaps not one, but two, but it's in the
All
same
right, that's
wording.
fine.
A lot of people always say, "Oh, I don't have the time or the motivation to deal with my finances." And I think it's with all things we need to change. If it's good habits for food, with sports, we never have time. If we are working and busy and we have a family life and friends, but it's an excuse, and people really should realize that, especially with all the new technology, it is easy to make a little bit time. It's you should make an appointment with yourself from time to time, and it's really possible to change this behavior, and to build in, I would say, a kind of financial rendezvous with yourself on a frequently, on a certain basis from time to time. So that's really one myth, that we all have time, and you can, with small steps, we can do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this isn't quite money, but I do have blocked out times on my calendar,
Hmm.
focus times to actually get stuff done in
Yeah.
between meetings. Because I know, for all of us is, we have these online calendars and, all these things, and our schedules just get crazy. And like you said, is we run out of time to
Yeah.
do these things that are important to us. So maybe once a month, every Saturday morning, block out 2 hours to think about your
Hmm.
money and to do your
Yeah.
financial things. And also block out time to talk to your significant other, your partner, spouse, whoever else is in your life, your kids, about your financial life is. But, like you said, you have to make that time proactively, is because you do schedule something like dinner with your friends. You put that on a calendar. So put
Absolutely.
your
Yeah.
personal financial time on a calendar and commit to it. Is,
Hmm.
something I've said in talks is that people spend more time researching a new television than they do researching their auto insurance.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
so
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it sounds, if you tell it, it's like it's not possible, but it's true. It's yeah. That's
I,
true.
I I I love it. That is a great myth. So the next one is, let's get out the time machine for a minute. If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money, what advice would you give your younger self?
Well, we talked about taking the time to manage your money. I think, of course, I have been working in the financial sector, so it's clear that from time to time I did some stuff with my money. But I think I should have done it more. Yeah, I should have done it more on a regular basis, put it in my agenda. Now that's what I'm doing now. But in the past, to be honest, it was also more difficult in the sense that banking hours, I don't know how it is in the US, but here in Europe, in the past, the bank was open from 9 to 12 and from 2 to 4. And if you were lucky, there was one evening, a Thursday evening, where they were open until 9. But for the rest, it was really not easy. in combination with your job and children and whatever, to make appointments. You almost had to take a day off or a half a day off to go to the bank, because it was, of course, not digital. So you really had to go to the bank to buy shares and buy. Nowadays, if you tell it, people will say, "But what is she telling?" but but it was a physical thing, so you really needed to go to the bank to sign a document. You needed to be, yeah, there. So it was time consuming and not easy, but it's not because it's not easy that I could not have done this more and better and on a more regular basis. And nowadays it's perhaps different. You have everything available 24 hours a day. With just a few clicks, you can do it, but it's not because it's easy that people do it, I guess. But for me, it's easier now. And it's also because now I really have that habit of managing it and planning to do it. I do it now on a regular basis. But yeah, so I'm definitely an example of somebody who had a learning curve in managing my money.
Oh yeah, I went to that as well, and I was laughing, and thinking about going to the bank because, I explained it to my son as, he'll buy something, just online, and it's so easy. But if I wanted to buy something when I was a kid, like a record, is
Yeah,
I'd have to go to the bank when the
yeah,
bank was open. I'd have to withdraw cash. I'd have to get to the record store. And so there was a
yes,
lot of friction built in. So,
yeah, yeah,
there was a downside because, if I couldn't get to the bank for whatever reason during the hours, you had to wait till Monday to roll around again because you couldn't get money on the weekends.
yeah,
And, so you had this thing where, there's a good and bad to that convenience
yeah.
that we
Hmm.
have.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
and the thing that you said is to go back, as your two tips, go together is because again, it was planning and managing are the things that come in, and that's where those are life skills. Those aren't.
Hmm.
I mean, you're applying them to money, but you are using a life skill, and
Absolutely.
that's ties into the theme. So the last question, Els, is what is your number one tip to change the way we think about money?
Um, I think the way how we should change thinking is that don't do it tomorrow, but do it today. So, people who are listening to this podcast, we talked about planning and no procrastination, etc. Well, my tip to change is you listen. So, if you listen before you do something else, put something in your agenda or do already a small step today. Is it making a plan, or is it making an appointment with yourself, or is it, yeah, looking at a contract or whatever? But do something, because if you don't do it now, the probability that you will do it tomorrow is not that high. So
Yeah, that's it. Take that small step today. And,
yeah,
for people watching and listening, do it, like El said, put it on your calendar for this weekend,
yep,
an
yep,
hour to think about
yep,
your money and next
yep.
steps. And of course, I would say go back and listen to some past episodes of this podcast. Great idea.
Absolutely. 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 Yeah.
So, Els, where can people learn more about you and your work?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's in Flemish, Dagelijks Geld
Okay.
or Daily Money. In French, it's Argent Quotidien. So there they can find a little bit more. I also have a book, but it's only until now available in Flemish. But for those who speak Flemish, there are people around the world, not only in Belgium, who speak Dutch. So I have a book, and I would say check our website, and if we can help someone, I'm very happy. Yeah. To do something, we really try to reach out to as much companies as possible. So, because there's still a lot of work to do, I think.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, I'll put in the links, including links to your LinkedIn profile, which is in
Okay, great.
English,
Yeah.
so people can start there. And if you do speak Flemish or French, you'll be able to go further with Elsa's work. and everything. So, Els, thanks for taking time to join us on the Get Ready Before Life Happens podcast.
Thank you very much for having me here. I would say go on with your fantastic work because you really bring in so many knowledge and so many interesting insights that we really need to make people think in another way about money and to handle it also in a good way. So thank you so much for all your inspiration, all your nice podcasts. And so, I would also invite the people to listen to all the other podcasts and to check your website because it's amazing the information that is collected over there and available. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Els. I appreciate the kind words and I appreciate it, but it's guests like you that make this show go. And for people who have been watching and listening, is I've had some fantastic guests. So I appreciate you being part of the journey. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in to this episode of Get Ready Before Life Happens. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also go to my website at tonystewart.com to join the Get Ready movement and receive access to my newsletter and a whole bunch of free resources. Because when life happens, the way you think about money matters.